Another 2 a.m. dash to the bathroom is more than annoying. It's your body tapping the brakes. Left on repeat, it can chip away at deep sleep, drain daytime energy, and hint that your routine is off clock. Stay with me for a calm, natural plan that eases the nights and puts you back in control. Water. You're not alone. I've been there, calculating the distance to the bathroom like it's a mini commute. Here's the surprising part. Those nightly trips aren't always about a tiny bladder or poor sleep. Sometimes they're a quiet signal that your body is trying to tell you something upstream. Something about timing, salt, circulation, or even how you breathe when you're out cold. And yes, there's a simple, natural way to nudge things back on track without drama, but it only works when we apply it with the right amounts and the right sequence. Let's name the issue so we can solve it. Waking at night to urinate is called nocturia. It's common, and in many cases, it's driven by everyday choices. Big dinners and bigger drinks late at night. A bottomless iced tea at the diner because refills feel like a good deal. A second coffee after 5 p.m. to push through emails. A salty pizza slice during the game with pretzels on the side, then a tall cola on the couch. Sound familiar? In these moments, the bladder is the messenger, not the mastermind. The truth is still reassuring. For most people, gentle, natural changes, timing fluids earlier, easing evening salt, moving the legs before bed, reduce those wake-ups. Still, we keep a responsible eye on red flags. Frequent nighttime urination can be linked to conditions like poorly controlled blood sugar, untreated sleep apnea, or fluid pooling in the legs that returns to the bloodstream when you lie down. That isn't a diagnosis. It's a checklist of clues so you can act wisely. Here's a counterintuitive insight that helped me connect the dots. Many of us spend the day sitting at a desk, driving, or standing in one spot. Gravity encourages fluid to settle in the lower legs. You may even notice faint sock marks around the ankles by evening, the bracelet no one asked for. Then bedtime arrives. When you lie down, circulation redistributes, the kidneys catch up, and the body finally decides to move that extra fluid out. Result: 1 a.m., 3 a.m., 4:30 a.m., and you're staring at the ceiling wondering if you drank an ocean. The culprit might be less about late-night water and more about late-day legs. Small, natural course corrections change the night. Front-load hydration earlier in the day so your kidneys do the heavy lifting when you're awake. Ease up on the evening sodium hiding in barbecue sauce, canned soups, and frozen entrees. Consider a firm caffeine cutoff in the late afternoon. Refill coffee at 6 p.m. is a 2-for-1 deal on midnight bathroom trips. If alcohol is part of your routine, aim to finish earlier with a modest amount. Beer and hard seltzers are frequent culprits, not because they're bad, but because their timing amplifies nocturia in a predictable way. None of this requires fear. It asks for a little planning and a willingness to test one change at a time, like a friendly experiment you run on your own life. I promised practical steps, and they're coming in a measured order so you can avoid mistakes. With health, details matter. Too little fluid can bring headaches, fatigue, even kidney stone risk. Too much right before bed almost guarantees a 3 a.m. wake-up. Slashing salt to 0 isn't the goal. Using less late in the day is. Natural strategies are powerful only when the dose, the timing, and the method suit your body. That's why I want you to stick with me until the end of this guide. There's also a small bonus I'll share later. A low-tech, circulation before bedtime routine that pairs gentle movement with a simple garment you probably have in your drawer. It's safe, it's quick, and it quietly supports everything you're learning here. Before we move on, a quick, responsible note. If you notice pain or burning with urination, fever, blood in the urine, severe swelling, sudden breathlessness, or a new pattern of waking to urinate that escalates quickly, that's your cue to seek medical evaluation. Natural methods complement care. They don't replace professional diagnosis. Most of us, though, will see meaningful change from dialing in our daily habits, especially in how we eat and drink from late afternoon onward. What I want you to remember from this first stretch is simple. The bathroom trip is the end of a story that started hours earlier. By adjusting what happens at dinner, during halftime snacks, on the drive-through line, and in those last emails with a mug of strong coffee, you alter the ending. You sleep deeper, wake fewer times, and actually feel the difference in your energy the next day. That is not hype. It's physiology responding to small, well-timed choices. And we'll do this carefully, step by step, so you can clearly see what works for your own body without guesswork. The next tip is one of the most important. Skipping it often leads to weak results and, in some people, unintended side effects such as dehydration, dizziness, or disrupted sleep. Proceed thoughtfully so you can get the benefits safely. A moment ago, we traced how evening habits and fluid pooling in the legs can set the stage for those 2 a.m. wake-ups. Now let's separate routine, fixable patterns from signs that deserve closer attention. Calmly, clearly, and with actions you can start today. No scare tactics here. Just a practical read on your body's signals. Start with frequency and change. If you've always slept through the night and suddenly you're up 2 or more times, several nights in a row, without an obvious reason like a ballpark hot dog with 2 large colas or a late double espresso, pay attention. A new pattern can be a helpful early nudge to adjust habits and, when needed, to check in with a clinician. If nighttime trips happen mainly after late salty dinners, think barbecue platters, mac and cheese, wings with extra sauce, ramen packets, frozen pizza, there's likely a straightforward fix hiding in plain sight. If they persist even when you eat lighter and hydrate earlier, we widen the lens. Other clues tell a fuller story. Waking with a dry mouth and morning headache can suggest poor sleep quality. For some people, loud snoring and pauses in breathing signal sleep apnea, a condition that often increases nighttime urine production. Notice afternoon ankle marks from socks or subtle shin dents that take a moment to rebound after pressing with a fingertip. That pitting means fluid is lingering in the legs, waiting to recirculate when you lie down. In men, a weaker urine stream or straining can point to prostate enlargement. Burning, urgency, or fever point toward infection. Excessive thirst, unintended weight changes, or daytime fatigue can relate to blood sugar issues. None of these clues are diagnoses. They're reasons to be methodical and, when appropriate, to get evaluated. Let's bring in a simple, natural tool, a 72-hour diary. For 3 days, jot down what and when you drink, what you eat for the evening meal, the times you urinate, day and night, and how many times you wake up. Add 2 quick observations. Ankle sock marks at day's end and whether a fingertip pressed into the shin leaves a brief indentation. You're not hunting for perfection, just patterns. Many people discover a clear theme: late sodium, plus late beverages, plus minimal evening movement, predictable 1 to 3 overnight trips. With that awareness, you can test changes without guesswork. Actionable adjustments work best when they're measured, not extreme. Front-load most of your hydration earlier in the day, spacing sips through the morning and early afternoon. Gentle reminder: I'll save my water for tonight is a common setup for nocturia. Choose a sensible caffeine cutoff in the late afternoon. Refills are great for conversation, but not for sleep. If alcohol is part of your week, keep the serving reasonable and finish earlier in the evening. It can increase urine production and fragment sleep. Shift dinner earlier when possible and watch for hidden sodium in takeout, sauces, and convenience foods. Barbecue sauce, soy sauce, canned soups, deli meats, and snack mixes. None of this says never. It says know the timing. Movement matters more than many expect. A 20-30 minute easy walk after work helps your calves act like pumps that move pooled fluid back into circulation while you're still upright. Follow that with a brief session, 10 to 15 minutes, of legs comfortably elevated above heart level during your wind-down routine. This isn't intense exercise, it's strategic circulation. Many viewers notice fewer nighttime trips within a week of this pairing, especially when stacked with a lighter, earlier dinner. Medication timing can also shape the night. If you take a prescribed diuretic, many clinicians recommend earlier dosing to avoid sleep disruption. Never change prescriptions on your own, but it's worth a conversation if you're waking repeatedly. The same goes for over-the-counter decongestants, evening energy drinks, and large vitamin-mineral beverages that you might be chugging late. Harmless in theory, sleep-stealing in practice when the clock is wrong. Keep the mindset steady and data-driven. You're testing, observing, and refining. If pain, fever, blood in the urine, sudden breathlessness, or marked swelling shows up, seek medical care promptly. Natural strategies don't conflict with professional guidance. They make that guidance work better by aligning your daily rhythm with how your body prefers to handle fluids. Let me leave you with a concise, memorable idea. The clock often matters more than the cup. When fluids, salt, and movement land earlier in the day, the night tends to calm down. That's why the next steps focus on precision. How much, how late, how to stage movement, so your efforts pay off without backfiring. Change too little and you'll be disappointed. Change the wrong thing at the wrong hour, and you might end up dehydrated or wired at bedtime. We'll avoid both outcomes by being specific and gentle. The next tip is one of the most important. Ignoring it often leads to lackluster results, and in some cases, unintended side effects like dehydration, dizziness, or poorer sleep quality. Stay thoughtful, so the benefits outweigh the risks. Let me begin with a simple picture. It's evening, you're unwinding after a long day, and dinner looks innocent enough. Grilled chicken, a generous drizzle of barbecue sauce, a bowl of mac and cheese on the side. Maybe a handful of pretzels while the game plays in the background. You sip a tall glass of sweet iced tea because the refills are free, and later you treat yourself to a square of dark chocolate. Nothing extreme, nothing reckless. Yet a few hours later, your sleep fractures into short chapters, punctuated by a trip down the hallway that feels automatic. What if the chain reaction started not with how much you drank, but with how that meal was constructed and when it landed on your clock? Here's the quiet truth I wish more of us were told. Sodium, stimulants, and timing cooperate in ways we rarely notice. Barbecue sauce is a double agent, sweet and tangy on the tongue, salted enough to preserve flavor. Canned soups and ramen packets concentrate salt like a sponge. Deli meats borrow brine to stay tender, and frozen pizzas hide a lot under a thin layer of cheese. Salt attracts water. Your body keeps more fluid on board to balance things out. During the day, especially if you sit or stand for long stretches, some of that fluid drifts toward the lower legs. Come bedtime, you lie flat, circulation redistributes, and the kidneys finally get the memo. That's when the bladder becomes the messenger. Stimulants add a different push. Late afternoon coffee, a refill of black iced tea with dinner, or a modest square of dark chocolate after dessert seem harmless. But caffeine and its cousin theobromine can nudge the bladder and promote urine production. Even decaf often contains a small amount of caffeine, usually not a problem in the morning, but closer to bedtime it matters. Alcohol is its own twist. It can increase urine output and fragment sleep architecture, which means you wake more easily and notice bladder signals you might have slept through. This isn't a moral judgment on beer, wine, or a cocktail. It's simple physiology with a schedule attached to it. Several common pairings amplify the effect. A salty takeout sandwich with chips, plus an evening energy drink. A late family dinner at the diner where coffee flows freely after 6 p.m. A movie night with nachos, pickles, and a hard seltzer. A game day spread of wings with extra sauce, pretzels, and a tall cola. If you've ever said, "I barely drank water and still woke up twice," this is the likely reason. The bladder is responding to a total pattern, not a single cup. So what actually helps without turning dinner into homework? Begin with a label scan that takes 5 seconds. Look for sodium per serving, and remember that packaged foods often sneak in 2 or 3 servings per container. Choose low-sodium versions when practical, and balance salty items with fresh sides that aren't heavily seasoned. If you love canned beans, drain and rinse. It's a small step with a real payoff. If barbecue sauce is non-negotiable, use a spoon instead of a squeeze. Less by default. Swap deli meats a few nights a week for roasted chicken you slice yourself, or pile on avocado, tomato, and lettuce so the sandwich fills you up with fewer salty toppings. For beverages, adopt a friendly cutoff that respects your sleep. Caffeine earlier, calmer choices later. If iced tea is part of your routine, enjoy it at lunch and switch to caffeine-free options by late afternoon. Sparkling water with a squeeze of citrus, or an herbal infusion that you brew earlier in the evening so you're not sipping right before bed. With alcohol, 2 adjustments do most of the work. Smaller serving, earlier finish. It's the difference between a 1 a.m. wake-up and sleeping through the cycle you need for memory and recovery. Notice the role of portion size and pace. A towering dinner at 8:30 p.m. asks your body to handle digestion, fluid shifts, and sleep all at once. When practical, shift the main meal earlier and shrink the portions slightly at night. No need for perfection, consistency wins. If your schedule forces a late dinner, keep it lighter. Protein, vegetables, and modest seasoning with sauces on the side. Many people find that simply moving dessert earlier or splitting it across the day trims nocturnal wake-ups without any sense of deprivation. Taste matters, so season creatively. Fresh herbs, lemon zest, garlic, smoked paprika, and a drizzle of olive oil can do what sodium used to do for you. If you crave that barbecue note, try a dry rub with brown sugar, paprika, cumin, and a pinch of salt rather than a heavy pour of bottled sauce. You keep the flavor story, minus the flood of extras that tug fluid into the wrong time of day. There's also a mental shift that helps. Think of your evening routine as co-packing. When salt, caffeine, carbonation, sweets, and alcohol travel together and land late, their combined effect is louder than any one item. Separate them on your schedule, and the total impact softens. A lunch iced tea instead of dinner. A weekend beer with an afternoon barbecue rather than a late-night drink on the couch. Chocolate after lunch when you can still burn a little energy before evening. If you're skeptical, treat it like an experiment. For a single week, keep the foods you love but adjust timing and seasoning. Front-load fluids earlier in the day, choose a sensible caffeine cutoff, temper dinner sodium, and give yourself a 2 to 3 hour drying runway before bed. Small sips for thirst are fine, but save tall glasses for tomorrow morning. Pair that with 10 minutes of easy movement in the evening, a neighborhood walk, light chores, or gentle cycling if you have a stationary bike. You're not chasing perfection, you're trading triggers for calm. A quick word on safety. Natural strategies help most when they're measured. Don't slash fluids to the point of dehydration. Don't eliminate salt entirely if you have no medical reason. Aim to reduce the heavy late-day load. If you experience pain, burning, fever, blood in the urine, sudden shortness of breath, or significant swelling, seek medical evaluation. Guidance from a clinician works beautifully alongside these habit shifts and makes sure you're addressing the right problem. Here's the take-home that tends to stick. The night reflects your early evening script. Adjust the script. What you season with, what you sip, and when. And the night often steadies. That sense of control builds confidence, and confidence is fuel for change. Keep it simple, keep it kind, and let your body show you what works. The next tip is one of the most important. Ignoring it often leads to weak results and, in some people, unintended side effects like dehydration, dizziness, or poorer sleep quality. Stay thoughtful so the benefits outweigh the risks. We've been narrowing the spotlight from vague frustration to concrete habits, and by now you can probably identify at least one evening pairing that stirs up nighttime wake-ups. Let's convert that insight into a short, friendly investigation you can run on yourself without special equipment. The goal isn't to prove a point. It's to let real-world data shape your routine so you can sleep better with less guesswork. Think of this as a 3-day snapshot that reveals how salt, timing, movement, and beverages cooperate behind the scenes. Start by preparing a simple page for each of the next 3 days. Divide it into 4 columns: time, food, drink, bathroom, notes. In the time column, jot when you eat, drink, and use the bathroom. In food/drink, write what and roughly how much, using honest estimates. 1 bowl of chicken noodle soup, 20-ounce sweet iced tea, 2 slices of frozen pepperoni pizza, handful of pretzels, 12-ounce beer, glass of water. In bathroom, note daytime trips and any nighttime wake-ups. In notes, record quick observations, ankle sock marks at day's end, whether a fingertip pressed into the shin leaves a small dent that takes a moment to rebound, whether you felt especially thirsty, or if you took a nap. This is not about precision, it's about patterns. Add 2 tiny checks that take seconds. First, around early evening, glance at your ankles. Even faint sock marks can hint that fluid has pooled in the lower legs during the day, common after long stretches of sitting, standing, or car time. Second, Press a fingertip gently into the front of your shin for 5 seconds and release. If the skin briefly holds a shallow indentation, it's a sign that fluid is lingering there. Neither of these observations is a diagnosis. They're clues that help you time your strategies. If those marks are present most days, your kidneys may end up doing the catch-up work overnight as fluid returns to the bloodstream when you lie down. Once you've collected a day or two, look for repeating themes. Do your nighttime wake-ups cluster after certain dinners? Salty takeout, frozen entrees, ramen cups, deli sandwiches with pickles and chips? Is there a common beverage nearby? Iced tea refills, a late coffee run, a hard seltzer on the sofa? How late is dinner when work runs long? And what happens to your sleep on those nights? Does a short evening walk change the story the same day? You're not seeking perfection. You're noticing cause and effect that shows up in ordinary life. Now, test small, natural adjustments with intention. Front-load hydration in the morning and early afternoon, spacing your sips so you stay comfortable. Choose a caffeine cutoff in the late afternoon. Many people do well with 3 p.m., while earlier works even better if you're sensitive. Shift dinner earlier when possible and moderate evening sodium. Bring sauces to the table in a small dish instead of pouring from the bottle. Rinse canned beans, pick lower sodium broths, or prepare a quick homemade soup. If takeout is part of your routine, ask for sauces on the side and add them gradually. It's not about restriction, it's about moving the heaviest triggers away from the hours when you want the body quiet and cooperative. Movement is a powerful lever precisely because it's simple. A 20-30-minute easy walk after work or dinner recruits your calf muscles as a pump to help move pooled fluid back into circulation. Follow it with 10 to 15 minutes of comfortable leg elevation while you read or plan the next day. Imagine you're staging the evening so the kidneys can process fluids while you're still awake, instead of handing them the entire job at midnight. If your schedule is tight, even brief movement snacks, 5 minutes up and down the stairs, a brisk loop around the block, or a quick set of body-weight calf raises can make a difference you'll notice in the diary. Consider the clock effects of other everyday items. Over-the-counter decongestants and late energy drinks can exert surprising influence on sleep and bladder signaling. Large, flavored waters or vitamin beverages chugged close to bedtime feel healthy, but often lead to regret at 2 a.m. Alcohol deserves careful timing. A smaller serving earlier in the evening tends to be kinder to your sleep cycles than a nightcap. If you take a prescribed diuretic or other medications that affect fluid balance, never change them on your own, but it's reasonable to ask your clinician whether the timing can be optimized to protect your sleep. Let's make the diary practical with a one-day example. Imagine lunch is a turkey sandwich with cheese, chips, and a pickle spear, plus a 24-ounce sweet tea. Dinner lands at 8:15 p.m., frozen pizza and a small salad, followed by a hard seltzer around 9:30. You note faint sock marks at 6 p.m. and a slight shin indentation that fades after a few seconds. That night, you wake at 1:40 and 4:10. The next day, you shift your tea to lunchtime only, swap chips for fruit, finish dinner by 7 p.m. Keep sauces modest, walk 20 minutes, and elevate your legs while reading for 12 minutes at 8:30. You sip water mainly before 6 p.m., with small sips later for thirst. That night, a single gentle wake-up appears at 3:20, and you fall back asleep quickly. It's just one day, but the diary turns vague advice into visible cause and effect. Safety stays at the center. If you experience pain or burning with urination, fever, blood in the urine, sudden breathlessness, or significant swelling, seek medical care. Natural methods can complement professional guidance. They don't replace it. If you have heart, kidney, or endocrine conditions that require fluid or sodium management, collaborate with your care team before adjusting your routine. Precision matters, and a clinician's direction helps you apply these tools safely. What you'll likely learn from this 72-hour snapshot is reassuring. Your body follows patterns, and patterns can be coached into better behavior. When you line up earlier hydration, calmer evening meals, timely movement, and a short runway before bed, the night often settles. You feel the change not just in fewer trips, but in clearer mornings, steadier mood, better energy, sharper focus. That's the quiet reward for a few notes on paper and a handful of small, repeatable habits. The next tip is one of the most important. Ignoring it often leads to weak results and, in some people, unintended side effects like dehydration, dizziness, or poorer sleep quality. Stay thoughtful so the benefits outweigh the risks. You've gathered clues, adjusted dinner timing, and begun to see how sodium, stimulants, and late-day fluids shape the night. Now let's transform those insights into a calm, methodical reset you can try for a single week. No hype, no rigid rules, just a structured rhythm that respects how your body handles fluids, salt, and sleep. The aim is fewer wake-ups, steadier mornings, and the confidence that comes from a plan you can actually live with. Begin with the clock, because the clock quietly runs the show. Front-load most of your hydration earlier in the day so your kidneys do their heavier work while you're upright and active. A practical target that suits many adults is 16 to 25 ounces, about 500–750 ml between waking and late morning, sipped rather than chugged. Add another 12 to 16 ounces by early afternoon. If you exercise, include the fluids you need for that session. If you don't, keep the morning emphasis anyway. The key is not to save water for the evening. That habit reliably shifts urine production into the hours when you want longest, deepest sleep. Give caffeine a boundary that feels friendly, not punitive. A simple rule is to keep coffee and black or green tea to the morning and early afternoon, with a personal cutoff near 3 p.m. Cola and energy drinks can sneak in later because they feel like snacks, not stimulants. Treat them as caffeine all the same. If you're sensitive to caffeine, or if sleep has been fragile, shift that cutoff earlier. Remember that decaf often contains small amounts of caffeine. Fine before noon, less ideal close to bedtime. Move dinner a step earlier when the schedule allows, and lighten the late plate. Protein, plus vegetables with modest seasoning, does the job nicely. Keep sauces on the side, and use a spoon rather than a squeeze so you naturally use less. Common North American favorites can be reshaped without losing comfort. Grilled chicken with a dry spice rub instead of a heavy barbecue glaze. Baked potato with Greek yogurt and chives rather than a salt-heavy cheese sauce. Tacos with generous cabbage slaw and avocado, using salsa sparingly at night. If takeout is your reality, ask for sauces on the side, split a salty entree with a partner, and add a fresh side. You're not aiming for zero sodium, just less late. Create an evening runway. For the last 2 to 3 hours before bed, sip for thirst, but avoid large beverages. It isn't about restriction, it's about not handing your kidneys a big job at 10 p.m. If alcohol is part of your week, smaller and earlier tends to be kinder to sleep and bladder signaling. Swap a 9:30 beer on the couch for a single drink with an early dinner, or reserve alcohol for weekends when you can time it earlier in the day. Put your legs to work as pumps. A 20–30-minute easy walk after work or dinner helps move pooled fluid from the lower legs back into circulation. Follow it with 10–15 minutes of comfortable leg elevation, feet above heart level, while you read or plan the next day. If your evenings are compressed, stack short movement snacks. 5 minutes of stair laps, a quick neighborhood loop, or 2 sets of 15 calf raises while dinner rests. The goal is to stage fluid redistribution while you're awake, so midnight feels quiet. Be kind to the bladder at night. Certain foods act like gentle irritants when the clock is late. Very spicy dishes, heavy citrus, carbonated soda, artificial sweeteners, and chocolate. Enjoy them earlier in the day when you can. Choose calming flavors at night. Roasted vegetables, mild herbs, chamomile or peppermint brewed earlier in the evening so you're not sipping right before bed. If you want something warm after dinner, a small cup, 4–6 ounces, well before bedtime is usually enough to comfort without triggering a nocturnal pit stop. Let's translate this into a 7-day cadence you can follow without spreadsheets. Days 1 to 2. Observe and implement the big rocks: morning hydration, caffeine boundary, earlier dinner, and the evening runway. Days 3 to 4. Tighten sauce portions, rinse canned foods, and check labels for sodium per serving, especially soups, ramen, deli meats, and frozen entrees. Days 5 to 6. Add consistency to movement, walk most evenings, and elevate legs comfortably afterward. Day 7. review your notes and compare nights. Did wake-ups drop from 2 or 3 to 1? Did you fall back asleep faster? Did morning energy feel steadier? Keep what worked and note any patterns that surprised you. Troubleshooting keeps this humane. If you wake thirsty at night, it often means daytime fluids were too light. Increase morning and early afternoon sips tomorrow instead of tanking up at 9 p.m. If you feel lightheaded, fatigued, or cramp-prone, you may have reduced fluids or sodium too aggressively. Ease back to a balanced approach and consider adding a small salty element earlier in the day rather than at dinner. If you're using a prescribed diuretic and waking repeatedly, don't self-adjust. Ask your clinician whether a different dose time could protect sleep. Safety remains the quiet anchor. If you notice pain or burning with urination, fever, blood in the urine, new or severe swelling, sudden breathlessness, or a sharp change in nighttime frequency without an obvious trigger, seek medical evaluation. Natural strategies support health. They don't replace diagnosis. If you live with heart, kidney, or endocrine conditions that require careful fluid or sodium management, coordinate any changes with your care team. Now the reassuring part, the body responds quickly to rhythm. When hydration lands early, sodium lands lighter at night, and movement clears pooled fluid before bed, the kidneys get to work on your schedule instead of theirs. Many people feel improvements in a few days. Not perfection, but momentum. Sleep stretches a little longer, the mind feels clearer, and mornings are less of a negotiation with coffee. Hold this like a friendly experiment, not a test you pass or fail. Your week is a practice run for a sustainable routine, one that fits office days, school pickups, game nights, and road trips. Keep the pieces that deliver the most benefit for the least effort. Over time, small, reliable wins add up to a night that feels like yours again. The next tip is one of the most important. Ignoring it often leads to weak results and, in some people, unintended side effects such as dehydration, dizziness, or poorer sleep quality. Stay thoughtful so the benefits outweigh the risks. By now you've noticed something steady. When the day's rhythm changes, the night changes with it. That is the core insight. Nighttime urination, for many people, is less about a stubborn bladder and more about timing. When fluids arrive, when salt stacks up, and when pooled fluid finally re-enters circulation. The practical win comes from aligning your habits with this clock, so your kidneys do more of their work while you're awake. Let's lock that in with a precise, gentle preparation you can make in the morning, followed by a low-tech circulation routine that quietly supports the results you've started to see. Begin with the preparation, because the first hours after waking set the tone for the next 24. Think of it as a morning primer that encourages steady hydration early and reduces the need for large evening beverages. Here's the method, as simple as it is specific. Pour about 16-20 ounces, 500-600 milliliters of clean, room-temperature water into a bottle you like. If you don't have a measure handy, 2 modest glasses work. Add a tiny pinch, about 1/8 teaspoon, of fine sea salt. This is less than most people add to a single portion of food, but enough to help the water sit comfortably and reduce the urge to chug later. If you enjoy flavor, squeeze in 1/4 of a lemon or add a teaspoon of honey. Both are optional. Stir or shake gently until the salt dissolves. Now this part matters. Drink it steadily between waking and late morning, not in one gulp, and don't repeat it at night. The reasoning is straightforward. Early fluids give your kidneys a head start while gravity and movement help manage circulating volume. A small amount of sodium early, not late, may help maintain comfort and prevent the "I drank a quart and now I pee all afternoon" effect. The citrus or honey is a matter of taste and can nudge you to keep sipping without turning hydration into a chore. If you live with conditions that limit sodium or fluid, including certain heart, kidney, or endocrine disorders, talk with your clinician before using salt in beverages and adjust the volume to your personal plan. If you're on a low-sodium diet or simply prefer plain water, skip the salt entirely and focus on timing. Use the morning primer as a foundation for the day's pattern. Add another 12-16 ounces of plain water by early afternoon, then shift to modest sips as evening approaches. Keep caffeine to the earlier window that suits you. and avoid large, sweet, or carbonated drinks late. In North American routines, that often means choosing sparkling water at lunch instead of a dinner refill and moving the chocolate square to early afternoon instead of a bedtime treat. Your goal is to arrive at the evening already well hydrated, so small sips before bed feel satisfying rather than desperate. Now the bonus that ties the physiology to an everyday routine. Use mild compression socks, rated around 15 to 20 ml on days when you sit or stand for long stretches, office days, long drives, retail shifts. They're not medical treatment. They're a gentle nudge against fluid pooling in the lower legs. 2 hours before bedtime, remove the socks so your skin can breathe, then take a relaxed 10-minute walk around the house or the block. After that, elevate your legs comfortably above heart level for 10-15 minutes while you read or plan tomorrow. This simple pairing, mild compression by day, light movement, and elevation in the evening, encourages fluid to redistribute while you're still awake, which often translates to quieter nights. If you have peripheral artery disease, skin conditions on the legs, or any circulation concerns, confirm with your clinician whether compression wear is appropriate for you. Several refinements help you tailor this plan. If you use a prescribed diuretic, ask your clinician whether a morning dose time could better protect sleep. If dinner has to be late, shrink portion sizes, keep sauces minimal, and choose non-irritating flavors. If you're a runner or you work out at night, hydrate to support the workout, but budget a longer runway before bed. Consider shifting the most intense sessions earlier when possible. If you wake thirsty, increase daytime fluids tomorrow rather than backloading them after sunset. If you crave a warm drink in the evening, brew a small cup of caffeine-free herbal tea early so you're not sipping close to bedtime. Keep an eye on tangible signals that your routine is working. Fewer faint sock marks at day's end, less shin indentation after pressing gently for 5 seconds, and a smoother fall-asleep window are all encouraging signs. The bathroom trips you do have should feel less urgent and be easier to fall back from. Many people find that the combination of morning hydration, timing, and the socks movement elevation trio reduces wake-ups by half within a week or two. No promises, just a common pattern when the inputs are consistent. A brief safety round keeps us grounded. Pain or burning with urination, fever, blood in the urine, sudden breathlessness, or significant swelling deserve prompt medical attention. If you notice a fast change in nighttime frequency without an obvious trigger, loop in your clinician to rule out infection, glucose issues, or other conditions that need targeted care. Natural strategies like the morning primer and the circulation routine are supportive tools. They don't replace diagnosis or personalized treatment. Here's the message I hope stays with you long after the details fade. Small, well-timed choices can restore a sense of ease to the night. When the body's clock and your daily habits align, sleep becomes something you step into rather than chase. That steadier sleep pays you back. More patience with family, sharper focus at work, and energy that lasts beyond the first cup of coffee. If this guidance helped you, share it with someone who's been quietly struggling through the night. Leave a like and subscribe so we can keep building a library of practical, trustworthy health tools together. Your attention makes this knowledge travel farther, and that changes lives in the quietest, most meaningful ways.